Hello everyone, so this is the piece of Rumba music that we'll be learning to play in this episode. Okay, so we'll be focusing mainly on the bass and the guitar because that's where most of the theory is. In almost all modern music, the bass is the most important part of a song, and then the other instruments only come in to support whatever the bass is doing. That's why even in the mbira lessons, I always say, so when the bass is playing one, these are the notes that we should play. And also the chord progression or the set of chord changes in the song is usually written using numbers, and these numbers represent the specific notes that should be played by the bass, or the guideline that the bass should be following. In case this is not clear for you, I explain music theory in many of my instrument lessons, so if you go and watch those, you'll have a better idea. Anyway, so let's get into the bass now. So the two main chord progressions in Rumba music are 1, 4, 5, 4, which is something like this. I'm sure that's if you've listened to Rumba before, that sounds immediately familiar to you. And then the other one is 1, 5, 4, 5, and this is the one I used for that music piece. So it goes something like this. Okay, so let's start with the bass now, and we'll put 2 beats in a bar, or we count up to 2 before we change to the other part of the bass, like this. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And that's the simplest way of playing it. Just for you to understand, but this gets boring quickly and it's not expressive enough. So I just came up with 3 variations of the bass line because this chord progression will repeat a lot, and these variations will help to keep the music interesting and expressive. So here are the variations, starting from the simplest one. And then we go to the first variation. And then we go to the third variation. And as you can see, I changed my picking pattern from this to this because there's some fast things that needs to happen there, and I have to pick down and up and stuff like that. Anyway, so let's go to the next variation. So the next variation is a little bit more interesting and kind of different to the first one. It goes something like this. And what I'm doing here is just a hammer on, just to add another note on the bass beat there. And some bassists use their thumb, but I think you need a 4-string guitar, or I don't know. It's just uncomfortable for me, so I prefer to hammer this note on like this, like this. So this is just what I came up with, and if you are a bassist, you can use this as a guideline and come up with your own interesting variations, and I'll leave a link in the description to other bassists who do amazing things with this, so that you can expand on your ideas. So let's go to the guitars now. So we'll be starting with the acoustic guitar, which I used to play the chords that supports the bass, and you can use keyboards or other instruments that can play chords. I just like guitars, so I use guitars. So I played the song in the key of G, and you can figure out the chords that support the bass by simply adding the musical alphabet to the Do Re Mi chart here, starting from the note of G. And these are the chords that you play. So that's a G, a D, a C, back to a D. So this is not exactly a guitar lesson, so you have to know what that means and how to hold those chords for it to work. But another important thing is I didn't just play it like that. I added some kind of rhythm that I kind of feel like works with the Rumba beat. So if I add a rhythm, it will sound something like this. Now that we got the body of the song down, we can move on to the lead guitar now. So my whole solo here was based on a few ideas that came from chords, scales, and harmonies. So the first part is based on chords, and it looks like this. So there are different ways to play chords on guitar, but let's say you are playing chords starting, let's say the G, right? You can also play a G from here. Here is the same chord. So let's say I start a G from here, and then a D from here, and then a C from here, back to D from here. Can you hear those are the similar chords that we're playing? So what I just did in the beginning is I just took a chord and then played these tinier 3 strings off the chords. So it will sound something like this. Can you see? I'm just taking this chord and then I just play the first 3 strings. And then when I put the rhythm there, I just put a rhythm that I think will sound correct with Rumba. And it sounds something like this. Can you see? Easy, I'm just playing chords there. And then the second part is, the second part of the variation is based on scales. And if you are a regular Rhythm in African viewer, you should know what scales mean by now. So since the song is in the key of G, I used the G major scale to create my melody, and you can play G major scale starting from here. So that's the G major scale, Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Ti, Do, right? So I just use that scale to come up with my melody. So for the melody here, I just followed the sounds that were in my head, and you can also have these sounds in your head by listening to a lot of Rumba music and getting ideas for from different lead guitarists of Rumba. So it sounds something like this. And the last thing I did with the lead guitar was to take the melody I came up with and then harmonize it. So harmonizing just means adding an alto part to the soprano, or adding another sound on top of the existing sound to support it and make it sound even nicer or stronger. So my harmony to the first melody will sound like this. So the only thing left is now the rhythm section, and one interesting thing here is the drummers are using the bass or kick drum and snare almost exclusively. And this video has just been to explain a bit of theory behind African Rumba music, but I'll link to other YouTube channels that are dedicated specifically to Rumba music if you want more in-depth information. And I've got no closer for this one. Goodbye.